Well, hey there, guys. Greetings and salutations, and welcome to this special Avatar, The Way of Water open spoiler discussion here on the John Campea Show channel. I'm, of course, John Campea. I'm joined by Robert Meyer Burnett, of course. And, you know, Rob, I wasn't even going to do this video because, obviously I had some drama with my tickets.
Right.
Where AMC suddenly had my Avatar tickets vanish on my phone, so I couldn't go see it when I planned to see it. So, well, if I can't do the spoiler discussion by Sunday, we're not going to do it. But then I had a bunch of the viewers say, just do it anyway, even if it's late. So that is what we are here to do. To talk about Avatar, The Way of Water.
All right.
And, Rob, again, it can't be emphasized enough. This is the sequel to the biggest box office hit in the history of Hollywood. Avatar is the biggest film of all time. So a lot of anticipation going into this. Can James Cameron follow it up? All that kind of stuff. And look, I'll just tell you right now, and guys, we're going to spend the majority of our time here today taking your thoughts, observations, theories, and questions about Avatar, The Way of Water. You can use the super chats to do that now, but do it quickly because we're only going to leave them open for just a little while here. But just my quick thoughts, then Rob, your quick thoughts. I was floored, absolutely floored. And I went in being ready to not like this film. Not that I was anticipating not liking it.
No, I understand.
But I was ready. I was prepared myself, prepare for the worst, expect the best. I went in prepared to not like it all that much and just see a visual feast that I knew James Cameron would. I knew it would be visually gorgeous, right? I honestly can't think of a single way that this movie is not superior to the original. I thought it had a much more interesting story. I thought the characters were more engaging. I felt myself more invested in the characters in this one far more than I did in the original. And I like the original very much. I thought the villains felt more compelling. I felt the actual threat, both practical and existential. The new elements worked. The old elements elevated, made better. I love the fact that we didn't just frolic. The movie starts and we get right into it. Like they instantly starts telling the story right away. A lot of movies will just kind of frolic around for 5, 10, 15 minutes, then get going. But this was like putting down the building blocks of the movie right from the first frame. I thought it all made logical sense from a continuation from the original. I thought it ended off at the perfect spot. And I'll tell you what, one of my favorite movie moments of the year, one of my favorite movie moments of the year is in here. And that is when Neytiri, her son has died, and she is just going around carrying out errands of murder. I have errands to run, and those errands are murder. And she's going around, and I told you about that shot, right? When she's on top of the one guy, she just killed him, and she's like, and her eyes are wide. I'm like, holy shit. This is like straight up a horror movie now. I nearly lost my shit at that. It was great. And everything, you start with the original tribes in the forest and you move to the water world, if you will. I love the characters in there. Even the little moments of levity about comments about the kids and all that kind of stuff were great. The dynamics between like even the tribal chieftain and his wife, who was voiced by Mayor Easttown, Kate Winslet. And then visually, I said on the John Campea Show earlier today that I'm sitting there. I watched The Fabelmans recently, and you see the young Steven Spielberg character watching the movies, and you see the wonder and awe and the imagination. He's totally captivated by the magic of the movies, right? And I remember thinking that because I'm 5 minutes into this Avatar movie, and I felt that. What that little Steven Spielberg kid felt in Fabelmans watching that's what I was feeling. I was like, there are a couple of movies this year that really encapsulated the magic of the movies. Top Gun Maverick was one of those. Avatar, The Way of Water is one of those. And I'm not saying those are the two best movies. I'm just saying, I can't really think of other movies, that and Fabelmans, like three films that really captured in very different and unique ways the magic of cinema. And oh my God, the poor devils who at some point are going to watch this movie for the first time, not in a movie theater. Like, give me a break. It's like, can you imagine if you had watched Top Gun Maverick for the first time at home?
Oh no, I would not have enjoyed that.
I couldn't imagine watching this for the first time at home. But again, look at this shot. Like, we thought when we saw the first Avatar, it's like, that's it. We've hit the ceiling of what visual effects can do and can be. This is as good as it gets. But just looking at this still image, like we see, no, we've still got more room to go. I loved this film. I won't say whether or not it's on my top 10 films of the year list. That video is coming in a few days. We recorded that earlier today, by the way. We recorded our top 10 films of the year list. We recorded our worst 10 films of the year list, and we recorded our most anticipated of 2023. And did Avatar: The Way of Water end up in my top 10 list? All right, I tell you it does, but I won't tell you where it lands. I'm not going to tell you where it lands. Anyway, Rob, your general impressions and feelings of Avatar: The Way of Water.
Well, it's funny because people are always trying to, I think with this movie, they're trying to disassociate all the effects and the technology with the simple story, simple to understand story. And I think that defeats, that kind of defeats well, it's not the point. The point is the experience of watching this movie in 3D IMAX or in 3D Dolby Vision or wherever you're watching it. You always say movies are experiential events. That's what this is providing. Yeah. Like by design, it is supposed to give you a transportive experience in a movie theater you can get nowhere else. And like you, dude, when this movie first started, I was sitting there with Elizabeth, and there's this scene where it's raining in the jungle, and it looks like the rain's literally falling in front of you.
I remember you telling me there are going to be times you'll swat at things in front of you, and there was a moment in the movie where there were like little bugs flying around.
Yeah, yeah.
And I literally did catch myself going, "Oh wait, there's not actually
it's
something
so
there."
crazy, yeah. and I think that's part of. Look, I mean, I don't mind the simplicity and the fact that he touches on story tropes that we've seen before. I mean, teenagers trying to get along. We've seen that in a million movies.
Yeah, but it's a universal experience.
That's what I mean.
Right? It's a universal experience.
It's totally universal, and it makes it easy to understand. I mean, basically what that's about is how do two people that don't necessarily trust one another, how do you build that trust? And you see, it's always compelling. How do you see these two tribes come together and figure out how to work together? That is a story trope that if it's well done, always works. It always works. And that's what Cameron does. He goes down and he takes he's a meat and potatoes storyteller. He's not some big philosopher. And when he's presenting this stuff to you, if you had to overthink it, you would be missing the experience of taking the world in. I don't want to be, when I'm watching this, I want to experience what he's showing me, because when you get underwater in this movie, like when they first go, that you see the shot in the trailer where the two people dive into the water.
Oh yeah.
Because that's kind of the beginning of the world of underwater, dude. This stuff. You're looking at the Kiri underwater. You're looking at this. I've scuba dived in tropical waters, and this looks like they were underwater shooting on Pandora. It is flawless. I mean, it is so crazy to watch this stuff and how they did. I mean, it's beyond. And when you're watching it, John, when I was so mesmerized watching this movie with everything that was going on. And then, since it's a spoiler discussion, talking whales. I loved it. I mean, you could tell as soon as, suddenly you have the story of this poor outcast whale that has nothing to do with the Na'vi storyline. Suddenly I'm invested in this whale. What happened to him? Why is he an outcast? What happened? What? And suddenly I wanted to know. Cameron is making you there's so much story here, and I just let it flow over me, dude. I might as well have been a monk, meditating watching this movie, because I was so into it. The rest of the world melted away. I wasn't thinking about anything but Pandora, and I took it in. Every single image that showed up, every single new fish, I'm like, that's not a real fish, but it looks absolutely real. And I love watching this movie, and I love the world building. I really do find the world building fascinating. There's a lot of really interesting questions. Who is Kiri's parent? I mean, we saw Grace's avatar die. was impregnated. They don't know who the father is. I don't think there is a father. I think Iowa has actually.
That's the predominant theory.
Yeah, that's Iowa.
Pandora's version of the Immaculate Conception.
Yes, but it was Iowa, generating that, because Iowa now, and it's clear as the movie goes on that Kiri's powers are she's the physical manifestation of the intelligence that's at the heart of Pandora, which is clearly a living planet, which goes along the lines that Cameron wrote and produced Soderbergh's remake of Solaris, which is about a living planet. So it makes sense that this might be James Cameron's greatest hits, but man, I'm so there for it. I adored watching this movie.
Yeah, now here's a burning question I want to ask. Was Neytiri gonna kill Spider? When they're standing there with Quaritch, she's like, I got, and like, for that like, because I choose to believe she wasn't going to, but they made me believe she was. Like when he's got her kid and she's got Spider there. Like I'll be honest with you, I was sitting there, I didn't know for sure. Like I'm already seeing some people in the live chat are saying, oh yeah, she was going to kill him. I don't think she would have, but she sold it. She totally.
Yeah, no, the performances in the movie are really terrific. I mean, the fact that there's so much emotion. Was she going to kill him? I think probably she would have. She might have really wounded him. I don't think she would have gone through with it. I don't think she would have murdered him, but she might have severely hurt him when it came down to it, because she was, rageful and all of that. And she, like you pointed out, she's so good conveying emotion. Imagine all the motion capture, like with the cameras on her face. And they show that clip from the first Avatar a lot of how she was able to emote. It's incredible for an actor to be able to do what she does. I mean, people talk about Andy Serkis. She might be the second greatest motion capture performer who ever existed, Zoe Saldana, in terms of being able to convey that emotion with her face.
How satisfying did it feel when the ship captain, when that cable trapped his arm, and by the way, the whale missing a limb, missing an arm, very Star Wars, father losing a hand kind of symbolism. But how satisfying was it when his arm got caught there and then his arm got cut off and he gets slapped? I mean, again, like you move from this great awe-inspired world to some straight up great action. Because that moment when all of the Na'vi are sitting on their water flight horses, and they sound the call, go, and they all start flying in towards it. I'm telling you, man, it wasn't since Top Gun that I felt that kind of thrill.
Oh yeah.
And then as the war breaks out and the battle breaks out, it was just, so it did several things great about the mythology of the world building, just the gorgeous visuals of the world. And then when it came time for the straight up action in the world too, it was like they nailed it. It felt great. And watching Jake and Neytiri going around and just offing fools.
Oh, it was. You know what? With her, and what was funny was they did set up in the beginning how good Neytiri was with that bow and understanding how she can shoot through the front cockpit glass.
Yeah,
and she knew how to take those kill shots. So it was already set up. It didn't seem out of place when she was doing it at the end because we'd already seen her do it at the beginning. I think as I was watching this, John, I said this to you before on the John Campea Show. James Cameron obviously is very interested in the ecology of the planet, making sure the planet's not dying, our planet. And rather than, like, you can join Greenpeace and do all this, be an activist, and people might listen to you, people won't. There'll always be a political bent to it. James Cameron, I believe that these Avatar films are his way, literally, of saving the planet. They're his way of presenting to all of us in the most entertaining way possible, without preaching, but he is preaching, but in the most entertaining way possible. We are supposed to take away from these movies that, look, man, we don't understand how smart, we can't converse directly with whales, but wouldn't it be better if we didn't harm them? Because we really just don't know. And there's a lot of, let's not put plastic in our oceans. And this is James Cameron he's trying to save the planet through these movies by making everyone's awareness. And I know that sounds a little hippy-dippy, but I really believe that's what he's doing, because you can't not watch this movie and have a healthy respect for all the life in the ocean. And the fact that the Na'vi, everybody has to eat, circle up life, but they understand, we saw it in the first movie, thank you, brother. Thank you for this food. Thank you for this sustenance you're providing to me. And if nothing else, watching these movies, I know in fan communities, people talk about, oh, it's a simple story or whatever. But this is an experience unlike any other. No other filmmaker can do this. None. Not even close.
There's a moment in this movie too that I don't think many people are even going to remember this moment. It came and went very quickly, but for me it was really profound because we see a lot of movies where the dad's a badass. Like we know the dad loves the kid, but the dad's a badass, right? They start this movie with Jake as now the badass dad, and he has his sons call him sir and like the military and all that kind of stuff, right? And so he just like lays into one of his kids in like after the opening battle sequence, right? And then the Kiri comes to him and says, he's sorry, he needs you. And he's instantly, Jake's facade goes from like, he screwed up, and he looks at her and goes, I almost lost him. Like that moment, like that is top level storytelling, right? That they showed instantly Jake went from the hard ass battle, you got to give the kid a hard time, he's screwed up and he put people in danger, to what was really underneath, what was really the source of the hardness and the anger, as he instantly almost breaks. And he's saying to his wife, I almost lost him. And my heart broke.
Yeah.
And I was like, they just they instantly made Jake this multidimensional character that I just loved. And he never broke character with his kids. To his kids, he was always still the general, right? And yet we knew it was way more than that. And that it's those little things. You can do all the other stuff. Have the pop, bang, whiz, action, flying, spears and arrows. You can do all that kind of bullshit. You're not going to have a great movie. And a lot of these high action films can do those things and they can be fun and I can enjoy them. But it's when you remember to still make these movies stories about characters and make those characters rich. And in that one moment, in the first act of the movie, I was like, I'm in. The moment that scene happened, I'm like, I'm completely invested in this now.
Well, you also bring up the fact that some people have criticized that Jake has brought military tactics and taught them to the Na'vi and all this. And I was like, but he had to do this. I mean, they were fighting there was a military struggle between two armies in the first movie. He brought to bear what he knows. He's an ex-Marine, and creating that kind of discipline. And I love the fact when they showed that attack on the maglev train at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
I love that coordinated. You saw that he has turned that Na'vi group of people into a well-oiled fighting force that understands how to use air cover, understands how to use tactics, and are really good at it. And I loved that because it shows that, okay, I believe that they could take on the Earth forces because the Earth forces only have what they've brought to Pandora. They don't have an endless supply.
And they're not in their familiar terrain. This is their world.
That's right. Yeah. And I really liked that. And I thought that was really important to set up the battle at the end too, because how can these guys flying with bows and arrows against weapons? They don't have beam weapons. I mean, they're using bullets. So it's not, and the fact that I love the fact that train strike at the beginning, you realize it was about them getting weapons. Yes.
And they were taking away all the guns and the weapons, teaching all them how to fire them. And anyway, guys, look, I said it already. I'll say it again. I think this is in every way superior to the first one. And I love the first one. And it's just what a terrific film. Listen, we could wax poetic about this for the next 2 to 3 hours, but instead let's do what we really should be doing here. Hearing from you, what was your experience and your thoughts, theories, observations, or questions about Avatar: The Way of Water? Let's get over to it and start hearing from you guys now. So Rob, what do we got up?
Well, the first thing comes to us from Marie Seafring. I found the movie.
Who, by the way, sends like a $20 super chat. Thank you, Marie, very much.
I found the movie visually lush and beautiful, but I did feel the first and second acts moved quite slowly. For me, the pacing felt better going into the third hour.
I often say this, and this is a good example of that. Did the first 2 acts move slowly? They did. But to me, see, it's not about fast or slow. It's about pace. Is there a cadence? Is there a rhythm to the progression of the story? And while absolutely the first 2 acts were a slower burn for sure, I nonetheless felt every single scene was laying groundwork and building blocks for what the whole story was building up for. I felt every single scene had a pace and had a cadence to it. And every scene had purpose, right? Every scene was communicating something about the world, the characters, or the conflict in every single scene. And for that, that's one of the big things to me. It's like, you can be slow. Slow is fine. But do you have pace? Is there a cadence? And I personally felt there was, even in the first 2 acts myself. What did you think?
I did too, because I was so fascinated by the world building. You know, where were they at now? Like, how did the world work? And the idea that some of the human scientists, that they had that relationship with them, that they had stayed behind, and the whole idea of Spider and was a baby, so he couldn't get on the ships to go back to Earth. All of the stuff that they were introducing fascinated me. So I was leaning forward half this movie, taking it all in. I can understand why some people would think that it might have been a slower, but I every little detail I was hanging on.
Yeah,
so.
Me too. All right, what's next?
Josh Becker sends in a $50 super chat.
Oh my God, Josh, thank you so much, man.
Wow,
Appreciate
Josh.
that, dude.
Josh says, hi, I just wanted to say thanks for all your hard work. I'm starting a YouTube channel, and Avatar 2 will be my first
Good for you, man.
movie
That's great.
review. I was wondering if you had any tips for me. Overall, I love this show, and I hope you all have a wonderful Christmas and bring on the filthy.
Well, thank you, Josh. Well, look, we are here today to talk about Avatar: The Way of Water, not YouTube tips. But what I can tell you is I have a couple of videos online that go all like into that quite in depth. Like, I think I have a video called How to YouTube, I think is one of them. But if you go onto YouTube right now and just search for John Campea Getting Started, you'll find a video I did a few years ago that the principles are all still apply, called Getting Started in blogging, YouTubing, and stuff like that. It's like a 2-hour video. Go look that up. I pour a lot into that. And then I did another video about a year ago called like How to YouTube or something. Just look up John Campea, How to YouTube. You should be able to find that one. That is also one that's 1 or 2 hours long. And I packed that one full with as much stuff that as I can. So again, good for you. I think all film fans should be getting involved in blogging, podcasting, or YouTubing for many, many different reasons. So I'm glad that you're doing that. And this is a good movie to start that journey off with. And thank you again, Josh, for supporting our channel on that level, man. I appreciate it very, very much, dude. And best of luck to you. All right, what's next?
Luke Stockton sends it a super chat and says, I love this movie. I got to see it in IMAX and 3D, and it was stunning. Did think the movie was way too long, but can't wait to watch it again. Felt more emotional to me than the first.
All right, 2 points for me. Number one, there was a few moments I felt like a scene. I never felt there was a single scene in the movie that didn't add to the story, but some of them did drag on a little bit too long. That I could, it's like, this movie could have, this is one of those films where I thought you could have shaved a half hour out, but I think you could have easily safely shaved 10, 11, 12 minutes of it out. I'm with you on that. The second part is this. While I did in the first part of the movie, like I was kind of like, whoa, the 3D of it. Look, guys, you know me. I'm not a 3D guy. And the novelty of that wore off pretty fast for me. That my next couple of viewings of this movie, because I'm going to go back to watch it multiple times, I'm not going to bother with the 3D. The 3D was well done. Well done 3D. I don't think it added anything to the movie, me personally. But if you're somebody who really appreciates 3D, well, then this is a movie you got to watch in 3D. Rob, you love the 3D. You really enjoyed the 3D experience.
But the funny thing about the 3D, you know, when 3D first started, it was very gimmicky. They were in the 50s, they'd stick things at you. I think what's interesting about the 3D in this is it's all about the immersion. It's not, you know, I was appreciating it from a production standpoint. I'm just watching this going, wow, like this is amazing.
It's the best 3D ever done.
Yeah, ever done.
I mean, this movie is the best 3D that's ever been done in cinema.
Yeah, I think so too.
It still didn't make any difference.
I mean,
to me,
I still think for me, it's always character and story. But some of the stuff, just like when they were swimming in the water, I'm like, this is incredible. It's just, I was blown away by it.
I forgot to mention this up. I don't know if you still have the shot there, Taylor, but you had a shot of, I think is, what's the character's name? The girl who's connected to the planet.
Kiri.
Kiri. Okay.
Kiri, the Sigourney Weaver.
Yes. There it is. You got to remember, I used to work in visual effects, right? And this is going to sound silly to everybody else. But the part, like I'm looking at the whole movie going, wow, wow, wow. But the part that made me go, what the hell? And no one else is going to get this. The way her hair moved underwater. If you want to watch and look for something that shows you how visual effects have progressed over the past 20 years, look for how hair is. Go back to the first Toy Story.
Oh.
And the biggest thing you'll notice is difference is hair. And how hair on characters, like on what was the evil kid next door, Spike or Bud or whatever that character's name was. Look at hair. I'm watching this, and I'm like, the way her hair moved underwater. I know to nobody else noticed that, but I'm like, I have never seen anything like that before. Like, it was just so well done. Anyway.
Well, there's something, there's a Designing Hollywood that's going to drop with Deborah Scott, who's the costume designer on this film. It'll be out tonight. And she was telling me that they actually had, even though it's all virtual, they had to build all the costumes for real, out of fabrics, out of the material they would really be built in, because they had to put them in the water and see how they moved.
How they reacted in the water.
And they were filming that stuff. So I'm curious, maybe they actually, whether it was CG or not, I mean, all of it was, but they might have had actual hair underwater and various kinds of hair that they digitized. But they had
even then the effect of having 40,000 follicles of hair and how they will interact with their environment and stuff like that. Oh, whatever.
No, dude, it was
they wrote for that.
Insane, because it's not there. There is no hair there.
Yeah,
that's crazy. The thing. It's incredible.
All right, what's next?
Marie Seifring comes back
another
again.
$20 super chat. Thank you, Marie.
Marie, thank you so much. I found it interesting that commercial activity focused on extracting a substance that stopped human aging. I love that. That was just almost a throwaway thing. It sounds like the explorers seeking the fountain of youth. John, I love that. I mean, that came kind of out of nowhere. I just thought they were hunting whales for meat or whatever. When you find out that they have a substance in their brains that retard the human aging process, I was like, first of all, that was ghoulish, and I love that. I thought it was great, but now I'm like, great. So now these whales mean nothing. And they say, Jermaine Clement just says, these creatures are way more intelligent than the Na'vi are. So they established that the whales in the movie are incredibly intelligent, very, very smart, and the humans will just destroy them without any consideration. And that was monstrous to me. And these are just, it wasn't just save the whales. It's like, wow, what if this were true of our whales? That's what you're thinking. You're thinking, my God, what a ghoulish, monstrous. And when you see that it's only one container.
One vial of it.
And that's all that these creatures mean to the humans. I wanted to kill everybody that was going to kill those whales.
It reminded me a lot of like the old Westerns, like when the natives of the land would be like, every bit of the buffalo is put to function and to use to preserve the people, right? And it's like, you just killed this entire incredible animal for that. I will say this, though. There were a couple of things. This is not a perfect movie. There were a couple of things that stood out to me narratively as very abrupt. For example, oh yeah, by the way, like Pandora before was about unobtainium. Yeah, by the way, not mentioned once in this movie.
No.
Unobtainium, the whole purpose of the human race being there in the first movie, not even mentioned in this movie. Right, so unobtainium is gone. And by the way, quick throwaway line. Oh, we found that this stops human aging, like stops it.
Yeah,
Wait a minute. Every human would know about that then. Like if that's already the most valuable substance in the universe, which the previous most valuable substance was unobtainium, but I guess James Cameron has a storyline he needs something like this for. It felt very, oh, by the way, this.
Yeah,
and then we move on. It's like, okay, that could have been handled a little bit better.
That to me seemed like there was, movie probably was 4.5 hours long. They had to cut it down. Other things that I thought was interesting, that Earth is dying and they're going to terraform the planet. They're building that. That
was the second thing. It was just, oh yeah, by the way, Earth is dying and now we're all moving here.
Yeah. Bridgehead City. That was really interesting that they're building this gigantic human permanent colony. Like, why did they allow that to happen? Like, after the end of Avatar, they're marching all the humans off Pandora. You have to get the hell out of here. So why did they allow them to build this big city, to come back and build this beachhead city on the planet? Why didn't they prevent that? Maybe it was already being built. We just didn't see it.
Well, remember, by the time we see it, it's 1 year later.
Right.
And remember, she did point out the general, Edie
Falco.
Her character mentions these spider bots we have, we can put up a building in a day.
Yeah, that's
true. So remember, it was all just forest until they showed up, and they built that entire thing in 1 year.
Right, they did. And it's just, yeah, I mean, obviously they had to take certain narrative shortcuts, but both of those things were abrupt.
All right, what's next?
Harv's Case says the second act was my favorite part of the movie. I love going to aquariums, so spending all that time underwater in IMAX 3D was the bee's knees for me.
Tell you what, man, you are now being introduced to an entire new part of Pandora, an entire new culture, something that is obviously going to become very, very important and obviously we're going to see the two different tribes team up at some point in Avatar 3 or 4 as we move forward, but just inhabiting and exploring that world. And again, it expands on our understanding of the audience. This is why I say every single scene had a purpose. It expanded our understanding as the audience as to what it is they're fighting for. This is what they're fighting for. And it worked for me on an incredible level. You're right. The second act of the movie was just awe and wonder.
Yeah, yes.
And by the way, one of the maybe the best single line in the movie, as Jake brings his family there and they're meeting with the chief of that tribe. And he says, "You will show them this to spare them the humiliation of being useless."
Right.
And I laughed out loud at
Yeah.
that. Spare them the humiliation of being useless. I thought that sounds like something my dad would say.
Yeah.
To me specifically. Yeah, I love that line a lot. All right, what's next?
Marie Seifring,
Says
again,
another $20. Marie, thank you so much.
Incredible, Marie. Thank you so much. What do you think of the theory that while Kiri's mom is Grace's avatar, Kiri's other parent is actually Iwa, or the living spirit of Pandora? I completely agree that that's true. I absolutely 100% think that's true because Iwa is, I think in a way, Iwa is trying to understand what's going on as well, because Iwa doesn't have eyes on the humans. I think Iwa, the planet was in harmony until the humans showed up. I think Iwa wants to know, well, what is going on now? Why are my trees being destroyed? Why is this happening? When Jake Sully went in the first movie and contacted her and said, "Look, I don't know what you can do. I don't know if you can actually hear from me. I don't know. But if you can, this is what's going to happen." And you saw at the end of the first film, Iowa was able to summon the animals, and literally launch that attack that saved the day. So I'm sure after that, I was like, I don't quite understand what's going on here, but I need to do some investigating. So when Grace died and they kept her avatar alive, they saw that there was being gestating in there. I think it was absolutely Iowa. And you're going to find that out. You saw her being able to control because she is Iowa, a cross between the two or whatever. But I think that's going to play a big part in Avatar 3. And I think the intelligence of Iowa is going to play a part when they go to Earth in Avatar 4.
I'm going to go out in left field here. While I think Iowa definitely has a role in Kiri and who and what she is and all that kind of stuff, I'm going to go out on the left field and say, you know what? I think when it comes down to it, Joel David Norm, they joke with her and tease her about.
Yes.
They tease Kiri about that, saying, "Oh, he was always around." I wouldn't be surprised at all if, while Iowa had something to do with protecting the unborn baby or something like that, or whatever, that we actually found out. So wait, you actually are my dad? I won't be surprised if they do.
You know what? I won't either, to be honest, because it's a scientific thing. Can our avatars procreate? I mean, they would have approached it. It wouldn't be like they're having some big romance, I don't think. I think they might have done it as an experiment.
Maybe. All right. Hey, listen, guys, before we continue on with the rest of your questions, observations, and thoughts, we're going to take just a quick second here and thank the sponsor of this open spoiler discussion, our friends at DraftKings. Hey guys, we want to take a second and thank one of the sponsors of this video, DraftKings. This time of year, everyone's excited for the holiday spirit, but what about all the basketball? When it's time to throw down on the NBA action, it's gotta be with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New customers can bet just $5 pregame moneyline on any NBA team to win their game and get $150 in free bets if they do. Plus, everyone can combine multiple bets for a bigger payout with DraftKings DraftKings same-game parlays. Just download the DraftKings app, use the code Campea, place a $5 pregame moneyline bet on any NBA team to win, and get $150 in free bets if they do. That's code Campea only at DraftKings Sportsbook. 21 plus in most eligible states, but age varies by jurisdiction. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details and state-specific responsible gaming resources. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply. Bonuses issued as free bets. Eligibility and terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/basketball terms. And thank you to our friends at DraftKings for sponsoring this episode of our Avatar Open Spoiler discussion. All right, that down, guys. Let's get through the rest of our questions here. Rob, what's up next?
Jake Camera sends in a super chat and says, best VFX in the history of cinema, 9 out of 10 overall.
Tell you what, they are. I don't think it's the biggest leap forward in effects that we've ever seen. But effects for the most part, they grow incrementally.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll say that this movie has the best visual effects we've ever seen. I still think the biggest single leap forward we've ever seen in visual effects was Star Wars: The Phantom Menace. That to me was still like, when you look at where the visual effects was in movies and then what Star Wars: The Force Awakens did, or The Phantom Menace, I mean, that was a massive leap forward.
Yes.
Massive leap forward.
On a number of different levels.
On many different levels. This isn't that big of a leap forward, but it is the natural progression. It is the best. It's the best we've ever seen. Yes, I agree with that.
I agree with that too.
All right, what's next?
CJ Rebirth says, my audience cheered when Payakan used the rope to destroy the hunter's ship and slice off his arm.
That with the whale.
Yeah.
I mean, as it was going on, and listen, they actually gave him his own story.
Right.
Like when the chief was talking about they were killing everybody and he decided to rally and fight back, and that's a no-no for them. And they touched on that too. It's like, do they ever fight back? Nah, they never lift a fin. And then this whale is like, fuck that.
Right.
And then he's like, the way he grabs the rope, goes over the boat. I never would have thought, because I admit, when Jake's son first starts talking to the fish, I'm like, well, this is a little silly. But then as you get to know the damn fish, you're like, yeah. And you're like rooting for this thing as he's ripping these things apart.
I thought it was a really interesting choice when you saw suddenly you're looking from the whale's point of view. You're looking out the whale's eye back at him. And that was I thought that was a bold choice because you're in his head. You're seeing that, okay, he is alive. It took a long time for the whale to actually answer, to say something. And I was like, I wonder if it's like, for me in the theater, I'm like, I really hope he talks to him. I wanted the whale to speak. When the whale finally did speak, because they drew that out for a while. Yeah. And I was like, yes.
I never thought when they introduced it that later on the film, I was like, I'm completely invested in this fish as a character.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it was great.
And that was another satisfying thing when he finally started kicking ass and taking the battle. Yeah. It was awesome.
All right, what's next?
It's awesome. Josh Becker says, I just had a smile on my face during the third act.
Dude, I was grinning like an idiot.
Yeah.
Especially like when the ship's there and then they come around the cove with all the multitudes of them.
Yeah.
And they were like, ah, and then they charge. Like from that moment on in the movie, I'm like I was just like, again, it's the magic of the movie.
Yes.
100%. Loved it. All right, what's next?
Luke Stockton says, the whole story of the whale connected so well with me. It felt like such a fleshed out character of his own. Felt so good about his second half appearance because of his story.
That's the thing. They gave this stupid fish a story. And they made him a legitimate character that we instantly felt for. And that could have gone wrong many different ways. Yeah. Right? Like it could have been a silly, no, I have to save this big fish. I mean, but they made it work, and they made you believe, and they made you love, and they made you get emotionally connected to it. And then by the end of it, you're sitting there cheering on this stupid thing. You're just cheering it on, and it's thrilling you and exciting you because of the story they gave him.
Yeah.
And he lives alone. He's an outcast. And yet he's still going to come in here and fight for the people that he loves.
That's right.
Even if he's rejected.
It was great.
So
I mean, John, I think a lot of there are detractors from these movies.
every movie does.
But
Every movie has
I think that some of these things, like, there is a childlike fascination. This movie is not, it's cool from a production standpoint, but it's not cool like Arnold Schwarzenegger wearing a leather jacket with gigantic firepower, driving a Harley.
Right.
That's cool in a different way. I think a lot of people reject Avatar because it's almost the anti-cool. They're giving you, this is Free Willy. It's holding your hand up while Willie jumps over you.
Except Willie's killing you.
Well, yes.
Yeah, Willie's killing a lot of people.
And that's, but it has that, it's between the color of it all, and it's not, so I think a lot of people reject this because it's not cool enough for them. And I think they're missing out.
Yeah, it was incredible. Okay, what's next?
Eduardo Hernandez says, "Hey, John, love everything you do for us, the fans. Do you think Kiri will be revealed to be a virgin birth?"
Well, that's kind of been the topic of conversation. Well, is it Pandora's Immaculate Conception? It's going to sound weird saying this. I think that's the lazier approach to it because it's kind of clear and obvious. I would be more intrigued if it actually is Norm's kid, but effective, imbued with the spirit of Iowa or however you pronounce the planet's name.
Yeah, Iowa.
But if I had to put $5 on it, it's probably an Immaculate Conception. But I hope they go a little bit of a different direction.
But I mean, technically, it actually, the planet itself would bring the power to bear. Like that Avatar and Grace, they were all connected together. So there was incredible, whatever the power of the planet of Iowa's power, it was all at the end of the first movie. There was a lot going on there biologically with energy. So it would make sense. I mean, it wouldn't necessarily be an Immaculate Conception because there was connection. There was something going on there. I mean, the power of Iowa.
All right, what's next?
Josh Becker says, "I can't believe that was so funny.
It was a funny
I can't
line.
believe I'm tied up again."
That was a kid's line. Spoken by a kid at the right way, at the right time, the way a kid would have said it. And it was charming.
It was charming and it was great. It was I laughed aloud at that.
But by the way, I talked about this about John Wick Chapter 4, and this is something that this movie does very, very well. Not John Wick Chapter 4, but the first John Wick. I said, whenever we talk about John Wick, I said there was a pivotal moment in that movie that hinges the whole franchise. Because a lot of times we can see a movie where the protagonist does some like really horrible things. And it can be cool, but we may not attach with it, right? And I mentioned in the first John Wick, they had to come up with something that would make us as the audience feel not only is whatever terrible violence our hero does, it is not only justified, it is unjust if it doesn't happen. And the way they did that was made us fall in love with a puppy and then have a bad guy kill a puppy. And at that point, Catholic nuns are standing up. That fucker got to die. Yeah. That fucker got to die. And anybody who tries to stand in the way of that fucker dying, those fuckers got to die too. And what they did so brilliantly in this movie is little scenes like that. I can't believe I'm tied up again. Like you're sitting there. We're humans, by the way. And we're sitting there. These humans got to die. Oh, they got to kill these guys. Because there was a scene coming of unspeakable violence where Jake and Neytiri are like murdering and killing a lot of people.
Yeah.
And they had to prep us as the audience for going, that is justified. They got to go and kill these people. And like holding children in restraints, holding guns to children's heads. I'm about to kill your kids, man. It's like, so that 5 minutes later, when Neytiri and Jake are on that boat and straight up murdering people, we as the audience feel no moral ambiguity about it. We're like, this is what's got to happen.
Well, that also when they kill the whale and the cub, they kill the whale and her cub because, in a way you could see that as an overt, like a heavy-handed environmental message, but it also works that these are intelligent creatures. They're as much a part of Pandora as the Na'vi are, and when you killed that whale, that was a transgression that deserved biblical retribution.
Yeah.
I mean, you're killing this incredibly.
The whale was the John Wick puppy in some ways.
Yeah, in a way, but I mean, you're killing an intelligent being, and but yeah, you have to do that. And by the way, that's not an easy thing to do to pull off in a movie. I mean, killing a puppy, killing a whale, and making you care, and having that through line, because there were times in John Wick and where someone said, wait, they killed his dog? Baba Yaga's coming for you, buddy.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah, don't.
All right. What's next?
Sam Fisher, 102, says, I really liked it. It was visually stunning and really well acted. The issues I had were too long and a bit of a retread. Learning the way of water didn't need to take so long, and certain scenes could have been more exposition, like the whaling scene or the whale backstory. Also, the final fight could have been shorter.
I wanted the final fight to be longer. And I'm not saying that facetiously. I mean, I actually wanted the final fight to be long. I thought there were so many things going on in that final conflict that I actually felt they could have spent more time. I would have liked to have seen more of the whatever the name of the new tribe is. I would have liked to see more time, because most of the action stuff,
Metacaina.
I'm never going to be able to say that properly. But most of the action stuff we see is Jake and his family and his people doing stuff, right? I thought more could have been done showing the new tribe doing things. And so I would have liked that a little bit too. A little bit too long, yes. I didn't feel it was a bit of a I thought it was a natural continuation of the first story. I didn't feel it was a retread. I thought it was the natural continuation plus the opening up of new avenues of storytelling that they did there. Again, not a perfect movie, but what an experience. It was a great experience.
What I'm waiting for, and it wasn't in this movie, and I'm sure it has to be part of the next films, is the evolution of humanity, human consciousness, John. Why is it that human beings believe you could go to a planet that you didn't grow up on, you didn't evolve on? Why do humans believe that it's okay for them to go to Pandora and just start killing whales and destroying an ecosystem on a planet with intelligent creatures whose planet this is? I mean, I think that's the real message here, is that who are humans to do this? I mean, clearly they're showing you Pandora is a rich ecosystem with all of this intelligent life, and we are just coming in, wrecking shop, straight up murdering, whether it's the Na'vi simply because we want something that's on this planet. I mean, who are we to be able to even do that? Simply because we have the power to? I want to see, I think that's where this movie, the series is going, where human consciousness must evolve, because what they're doing is it's so morally, it's repugnant, it's unethical on every level. And I want to see how they're going to deal with that. Will human consciousness eventually be elevated? Is that the point of the whole series?
By the way, something I meant to bring up earlier, Mr. 47 in the live chat brings this up. He said, when Spider saves Quaritch's life, Mr. 47 says, I said out loud, are you serious? I thought that at first too. Like when Spider, who's looking for Jake, trying to save Jake, sees Quaritch about to die, and then makes a decision to go and get him, bring him up. I was right there with him. I'm like, come on, he wouldn't do that. But then I remembered the scene that just happened where when Neytiri was either about to, or at least pretending was about to kill Spider, he saw Quaritch go, fine, I give up. Like, he could have died. He could have died doing that. He could have. So this kid just saw Quaritch almost be willing to die.
And it is his father.
And I mean, sort of.
Yeah, yes.
But this kid just saw that this guy was willing to risk his life, because he was probably going to die by pulling the gun away, putting his hands up, by doing that to save his life. And so that's why I think when Spider was underwater, he's like, well, F that guy. He starts swimming away, and then he stops and goes, ugh. And he goes back in. You know what? I thought that was actually an incredibly rich moment, and one that's clearly going to have consequences moving forward.
I did too, but it also shows a human being evolving. That was the moment, let people die. It's Spider that said, you know what? He's been touched by his experience with the Na'vi. He's the first human being that we've seen that's evolved. Rather than let this guy die, let this evil person die. I can't do it. I simply can't do it. I have evolved to a different level where everybody deserves to live.
What do you think Quaritch comes around?
Yeah.
You think so?
I do. You know why? Because once he starts seeing, the more he plugs in, I think Quaritch is going to have an experience with Iowa. Eventually, that's what you're going to see, because he's not going back. He can't go become a human being.
He's not human anymore.
He's not human anymore. And eventually, you know what it is? It's Robert De Niro in the movie The Mission.
Right? Yeah.
You know, when Robert De Niro comes around and he's an evil killer that has that, not a religion. Well, in the Mission, it's a religious conversion. But in Quaritch's case, he's going to be enlightened by the planet itself.
Because it was the first time they showed any kind of moral light.
Yeah.
In him, right? Like when he first stops his kid from being tortured, he tried to put it off as like, I just think this will be more effective if I take. But we as the audience kind of knew, no, he did not like seeing his kid, how he feels as his kid, getting that. And then that moment, that what I call in movies the come to Jesus moment, when he really did believe that Neytiri was going to kill Spider, he gave up. And it's like, that was the moment that made me think, yeah, he could have his eyes open and realize what I've been doing is wrong. I don't know.
Well, I agree with you, because he even says, you got heart, kid. Quaritch is not he's being portrayed as a mustache twirling villain, but Spider earned Quaritch's respect right there in taking on. He saw the kid being tortured. And even Quaritch as a warrior, torturing children.
I'm not part of his code, but he was willing to kill Jake's kids.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe still doesn't look at the Na'vi as being that's real.
That's going to change.
All right, what's next?
Harv's K says, what felt slightly off for me was the sudden focus of the humans on the space whales instead of unobtainium. That felt a bit shoehorned. We both agree with that.
I agree with you, Harvs. That was, again, not a perfect movie. And if you got to sit here and point out, like, this is something that should have been done better, especially in a 3+ hour movie. You've got room in there to make us believe in this transition, because again, the entire first movie is predicated on unobtainium. That's the whole thing of the first movie, not even mentioned.
Also, John, suddenly, like halfway into this movie, whaling becomes an issue.
Yeah,
like they haven't brought it up. I'm willing to believe that subplot, establishing the whaling subplot, and the humans doing that, I'll bet they had to cut it out because the movie would be 4 hours long. So I think that it felt to me it was shoehorned in. I think it was just they excised something about this whole whaling thing that was in the movie that just it. I wouldn't be surprised if they release an extended cut if we see more about whaling and it doesn't seem as shoehorned in.
But there was room, even in the final theatrically released version, to carve out space for it.
I agree,
because it felt very jarring.
It wasn't just what was in the whales' heads; it was the whaling in general.
Yeah,
because that suddenly, like, we're going whaling. Like, wait, what? They didn't even talk about the Matakaina. Weren't even talking about whalers. They weren't saying that. So I think that was just all eliminated.
Although speaking of the whalers, I really did like that one shot when the captain's like, I've got to meet my quota. And Quaritch is like, I'm going to be nice once.
Yeah.
It's like, that was a pretty good line.
Yeah.
I'm going to be nice once. And then that was it. End of discussion. I love that. All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, I honestly thought Jake and or Neytiri could have did, because this one was much more about their kids and the Sully family.
Probably meant could have died.
Yeah, could have died. Yeah. Could have died because this one was much more about their kids and the Sully family. Glad they didn't, though.
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't know that I would agree with the statement that this movie was more about their kids. I think they definitely made it now. The movie was about Jake and Neytiri before. Now it's Jake and Neytiri's family.
Yes.
It's about all of them now.
Yes.
Because Jake is clearly the central point, the central character. The entire motivation of our antagonist is Jake.
Yep.
He doesn't care about anything else.
And he's still narrating the movie like he did in the first film.
He's still the main narrator, and we understand the kids through the lens of Jake. And which, by the way, we haven't even mentioned yet. The death of the son. The theater I was in when the older brother died, I could hear it all through the theater.
Oh yeah.
Like little whispers of no. And like it hit the audience. I can't speak for your audience that you guys watched it with, but the audience I was sitting with, it hit them emotionally when that kid died. And when Kiri screams out in pain, you felt it. And then when she went on her righteous, murderous rampage, I mean, it was a very, very well done. And I'll tell you why it surprised me. The reason the death surprised me was because normally in these movies, the stereotypical way is a character gets hurt. Oh, and you think, well, they're going to die. But they make it out of the situation like, okay, now they're going to live. They did that. The kid got shot, but he made it out, went through the ordeal to actually make it back to his family and died anyway.
Yeah.
It was a very well-constructed scene, very well set up, and it had emotional impact.
And it was shocking.
And you know what? I think we would be sitting here today criticizing the movie a bit if they had this big battle in war with all these soldiers with automatic weapons, bullets flying everywhere, blah, blah, and really none of them got hurt. By having such a key family member like die in the way that he died, it was emotional. It had impact. It was well done.
And it was foreshadowed. I almost lost one of them.
Oh yeah. I almost lost him. Well, then he did lose one.
Yeah.
And now, I don't think with the burial at sea, I don't think that's over. I think we're going to continue to feel Kiri and Jake's pain of that loss. That's going to cast a shadow on a lot of stuff moving forward, I think.
But then the son is part of that ancestral sea thing.
All right. What's next?
Fangblaze71 says, honestly, I'm going to be biased because I love water-themed things and the ocean. But damn, I love this movie so much. I was smiling the whole time. Every frame was beautiful. For me, this is an easy 10 out of 10.
Again, I don't personally find it a 10 out of 10. Now, of course, you're talking to somebody who's only given, in the entire 15 years I've been doing this, I've only given 10 out of 10s like 7 times. I think we throw around, again, I have a couple of issues. The force, the whole whale brain fluid suddenly being a magical thing.
Yeah.
Mentioning it once and then moving on. All of a sudden, oh, by the way, Earth now needs to move here. What? Again, I had a couple of issues, but every frame was art. You know what it reminded me of? You remember the Jet Li film Hero?
Oh, yeah.
Hero might be the most beautiful film ever made. Like, I've said this before about that movie, that you could pause that movie at any frame in the movie and you can make a piece of art out of it. It's just, the color palette in that movie is breathtaking and awe-inspiring, whatever. But I've never felt like that about another movie until this one. Like, maybe not on the same level as Hero, but you're right. Every single frame of this movie was gorgeous and beautiful to look at.
Well, that's, I think, one of Cameron's strengths is he knows exactly where to put his camera.
Yeah.
To most
virtual
effectively,
or real.
Virtual or real, and the succession of shots. Because he also, like with the first Avatar, was one of the editors on this film. And he just, again, like Spielberg, he has a cinematic mind where he's able to create. There's not a shot that doesn't work. You look at this stuff and the way the progression of shots happen is stunning. I mean, that the way he can build an action sequence, it looks like it all comes out of his mind as opposed to being storyboarded by a storyboard department. And then he just shoots the boards. He does his own boards.
Yeah.
Every shot is right out of his mind. It's
all
incredible.
Right. What's next?
Ian S. says, I saw it in 4DX 3D and it was mind-blowing. Definitely recommended.
Again, I believe it's the best 3D ever done. Still didn't really make a difference to me. Like, again, my personal next few times I see this film will be just in a regular flat 2D thing, because I don't think I had the same experience with the first Avatar. Like, I watched the first Avatar, and the first time I saw it was in 3D. I'm like, that's really impressive. But then the second time I saw it, it wasn't in 3D, and I realized I didn't have one less good of an experience without it being in 3D.
Sure.
Now, again, that's just me. I find 3D to be a useless gimmick, but if you're somebody who really appreciates 3D, you owe it to yourself to go and watch it in 3D. If that thing makes a difference to you, it doesn't to me, but if it does to you, you owe it to yourself to check it out in 3D.
I agree.
All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, sort of saw the eldest son dying because he had no real arc. We only saw him as the good son to Loak's misbehaved son. I
think that in and of itself was his arc. And you got to remember, you have to look at these movies as not isolated, right? This is act 2 of 4, 5, 6, 7 act story that we have going on. And yeah, there was more attention being shown on the younger son, and the older son's role in that is they're setting him up as the responsible one. The way, even from that scene in the first thing, he'll take responsibility for the actions of his younger brother. It's my fault, Dad. It was me. It was whatever, right? He said they were setting this character up as the responsible one, the more capable warrior. Like, all that stuff was being set up, and like seeing his brother getting in trouble, he's the one who sweeps in. I think that, like, honestly, I thought that was setting us up for things that were going to pay off later. So when he did die, I got to tell you, for me personally, like, if you saw it coming, well done. I didn't. I really didn't. So when he died, I felt it, and it was like, wow. And again, it's kind of important that he dies, because now when firefights happen and there are people in danger, it's not James Bond in danger where we go, well, he's going to clearly make it. No, this is Sons of Anarchy now. But these characters, it's Game of Thrones now. This character could die. Any of these characters could die at any time now. And maybe not Jake, but I mean, almost any of the rest of them. So it was pretty key. All right.
I agree.
What's next?
Ismail Montoya says, hey, John, this movie was amazing for me, but the beginning of the first act seemed a little confusing with Colonel Quaritch and why his intentions. It's on my top 3 films of the year for me, though.
Well, I mean, the fact that humanity has this ability, again, it was kind of all of a sudden out of nowhere. By the way, at any time, we can just capture all of your thoughts, memories, and everything just fine. And then the moment you die, we can just inject it into a new body. Like, really? Like, it's just that simple? I mean, maybe it doesn't feel like a big leap from what the technology was in the first Avatar, but I don't know. It was odd to me. Still, I understood his motivations, because by the time he died, by the time he was going into that final battle, nobody in his mind had ever betrayed Quaritch the way Jake Sully betrayed him. And for him to wake up, find out that I died in that final battle with Quaritch, and then have all those memories beforehand, I bought it. I understood his motivation. Yeah, I don't know. What do you think about that?
No, I absolutely did too. And like, I even bought, like, okay, you can maybe military, you can save your personality, and they still have to grow those avatar bodies. It takes years for them. They have to grow when they're coming into the ship. They take 6 years or whatever. I believe that's now the logical extension of this kind of thing. But it's like they always talked about, it's incredibly expensive to do this. They're not going to like make humanity, turn them all into, I mean, maybe they will. Maybe the fate of humanity is to be turned all into avatars, and they have their own, you have your own personality. Everybody, that's the way to save mankind, is everyone has to be turned into an avatar to go to Pandora, because humans can't survive ultimately or something. But I did buy into Quaritch's motivation, and I thought it was fascinating. They played a lot like when he found the last moments of his own life
and his own dog tags,
and he looked at that. I was like, well, how does that affect you? Because he doesn't have a memory of his own death, but when he's watching he's aware it's his actual self. He just doesn't remember that, because his personality, when he recorded it, was before that battle happened. And I thought that was a really interesting, it's compelling. I kept thinking about that through the movie. Like, what did that do for him as a character? Not having a memory, but watching his death. I mean, watching Neytiri shoot him, and then, I mean, what was that like? That would be so odd.
All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, I feel so bad for Neytiri. She loses so much in these 2 movies. Home like 3 times, a son, her father, and it felt like she was barely in this movie.
I did not feel like she was barely in the movie. I especially when you get into the 3rd act, and it's like she is very much a part of the climax of the film, everything built up to it. You're right, she loses, even the moment, like to the point when she realizes her bow got broken.
Yeah.
That she got from her father.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Right? You're right, but I mean, it's important for us to feel the loss of these characters, to understand what they're fighting for and what drives them. And like even in that opening scene, right near the beginning of the movie, when they look up in the sky and they see that the humans are returning, and it goes to her face, and she knows what this means. And, it was just, done so well. But right, feeling the loss of characters becomes important, and they did that on multiple levels. And yeah, I like that a lot.
And I think that's part of the, you have to make us understand what she's losing.
Yeah.
Because that's the point of this movie. That's what Cameron wants you to take away from it. Like, look what we're doing to this planet, these people.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
Dylan Pusilowski says, I love the VFX, but the story was confusing at times, even though I knew the first film.
Maybe I missed something that prevented me from being confused, but I never actually felt it. I felt it was, again, a much better story than the first one, but I felt it flowed pretty naturalistically. I don't know. I never felt confused by the story myself. Did you?
Well, no, but I do think it was at the beginning, maybe a little bit like, where is this story going? Because in the beginning, everybody's based in you seem like, okay, they're living in the place where they've always been living, yet now they're hitting maglev trains and they're doing, and then where was all of this going to go? So I can understand there was a lot of story here.
There was, yes.
A lot more story than people seem to be giving this movie credit for. There's a lot going on. So I can understand, like, wondering, well, where is this now going to go?
All right, what's next?
Vixter 5001. I hope you're feeling better. She has COVID. Love the score. The new music still had the spirit of James Horner. Incredible cinema experience.
You know what? That's another good point. The music was really good.
Really good.
I'm guilty often of not noticing the music sometimes, and that's a testament to sometimes the score is supposed to just blend in with the movie and become a part of the scene. And so it's a testament when you don't notice the score sometimes, because that means it's really doing its job.
Yeah.
But here I did. They hit all the right notes, no pun intended. It hit all the right notes. It elevated when it needed to elevate. It calmed us when it needed to calm us. They did a terrific job with the score.
I think so too. And there was some new themes that I really liked.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
All right. What's next?
Luke Stockton says, I love the 3D of the movie, all the underwater stuff. Oh my God. But the frame rate threw me off in some parts of the movie. It felt like I was watching video game cutscenes sometimes.
I was talking to Rob about this earlier today. I never once noticed it. And I am somebody who really is sensitive to when they go to the higher frame rates in some things, because it has what they call the soap opera effect.
Right.
And maybe it was because it was all CGI, but maybe it was because I was watching it in IMAX.
Yeah.
Or I didn't notice it once in the movie myself, personally.
I only saw it in IMAX. I have heard that the frame rate shifting was less noticeable in IMAX. I want to go see it in Dolby.
To see if it's more noticeable there.
To see it's more. But I didn't. I mean, I noticed occasionally, but it didn't bother me. It felt like
I didn't even know. I couldn't have told you when it did it.
Yeah.
But again, maybe once I go back to watch it on a standard screen in Dolby, in the Dolby Prime or something, maybe then it'll stand out to me a little bit more. But yeah, watching it in the IMAX, and with the tinted film over my eyes, I personally didn't notice it. And normally I do. All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher says, I knew that Kate Winslet played the Matakaina chief's wife, but I completely forgot it was her until her name was in the credits.
5 minutes before we did this video, I went to Taylor and Rob and said, which one was Kate Winslet?
Yeah. Well, she's got the mole, the Kate Winslet.
She's got the Kate Winslet mole
on her upper lip.
I had no
Love
idea. I that's the great thing about this movie. When Natiri's doing scenes, I did not see. Why am I freezing on the actress? Gamora.
Zoe Saldana.
So I did not see or hear Zoe Saldana. When Jake was doing anything, I did not see or hear Sam Worthington. When she was on the screen, I did not see or hear Quinn. And I literally went to the guys before we started here. Which one was Kate Winslet? Because I honestly don't know.
I will say this, though, about this movie. I swear to God, John, they made the female Na'vi look as sexy as possible in this film.
Yes, they did.
I couldn't, because in the first movie, and I recently just rewatched Avatar before going to this. I didn't feel that way. They were so sexy. The girls were so sexy. Well, she was younger, too young for me, but I'm talking about Natiri and Kate Winslet. I'm like, did they do something? Like, did they sex them up? And they did, because they're barely covered with things. And I'm like, man, they're playing on my maleness.
There was a great, very classic 60s kind of movie shot where they get to the new village and the chief's daughter comes out of the water. It was a total Pretty in Pink moment.
Yeah.
She comes out of the water, and it was actually really charming, though, the way the son notices her, and then the big brother notices the son noticing her. It was a charming, delightful, wonderful little moment. But yes, they do design them to be.
I'm like,
for Na'vi, very sexy.
yes,
Na'vi.
and I didn't feel the way
Where
the
are
first
the ugly
movie.
Na'vi? I'm just curious.
There
about
aren't
that.
any.
There are not any. Yeah.
They're all beautiful.
All right. What's next?
Derek Large says, I think Lang will switch sides by the end of this saga, and it's because of Spider. He even seemed a tiny bit shook by the killing of the whales. I think he kind of did too.
They did do a little hint of that, didn't they?
He's gonna because he's gonna have the same conversion. Look, he's gonna end up being the guy that leads the fight against Earth.
You think Jake dies and Quaritch takes
if
that
Jake
up?
doesn't die, but at least Quaritch, because he knows the tactics, and because he's going to go full on once he realizes what's going on the planet, and he actually experiences. Because look, you already saw him riding the raptors.
Well, he's in a Na'vi body now.
Yeah, no,
right?
I think and you saw his joy when he first comes up flying. He's like, he dug it. And as he learns more and more about the planet, he's going to come to respect. He's going to do the full-on Robert De Niro.
Well, look, one of the great things in great movies is profound moments have impact on the characters that it happens to, right? I think, number one, finding out he had a child, his child was still there and living. Number two, seeing himself being willing to surrender himself to save his kid's life. And then number three, the kid that he believes completely hates him saves his life and then still hates him. It's like, and then leaves. But still, that kid who still hates his guts saved his life. Great movies will have these profound moments impact the characters they happen to. So it's going to be interesting to see how James Cameron is going to work with that and what kind of impact these events have on Quaritch as we move into the third movie.
Agreed.
All right, what's next?
Sam Fisher, 1 of 2. My one logic hole in the story is that if the Metakaina and the Omatikaya have had such little contact, like I suspect they have, would they really be able to understand each other? It would be like someone from Japan and someone from Chile being able to speak after limited contact. I don't know, man.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, we saw that they knew who Jake was. They knew that
so
he was.
So word that gets around. Like there is communication, right? The two leaders, when they met, they knew who each other were.
Yeah, they knew, and
they knew who they are.
And I think that because they're always jacking into the different plugs,
the world tree,
the world tree, whatever, that they have a knowledge of one another, and they probably this information is going between the two of them.
Yeah, so. And word gets around, and so they
all did the
isolated.
ICU thing. They all felt that. So
so clearly, while maybe a lot of them never leave their own village, they are clearly aware of each other. Again, the two chiefs knew exactly who each other were.
And also remember in Avatar when Jake goes out and talks to all the Tarek Makto, and he goes out and talks to a bunch of different groups, and then they come and fight. And that happens in the first film. So these guys know each other.
All right. What's next?
Bootneck98 says, all of the people doubting Cameron before the release have really been quiet for a few days.
Well, I mean, not all of them. Like some of them, when they saw that the movie didn't break opening weekend box office, right? Say, see? But then it's like, yeah, but the first Avatar is the biggest movie of all time. And this one just made double what the other one did in its first week.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Tuesday numbers came in. They're the biggest Tuesday numbers of the year from any movie.
Yeah.
This movie is going to follow. Now, again, I still don't believe this movie makes $2 billion. But it doesn't need to make $2 billion. But if it does, great. But this movie is going to be very, very big.
It's going to be, look, will it make Top Gun Maverick is the biggest movie of the year? Almost just shy of 1.5 billion. Will this movie get to that number by the end of the year?
Well, it doesn't need to get there by the end of the year.
No, but
will it get there by the end of its run?
Well, I only say by the end of the year only because could this be the biggest movie of the year?
But remember, a movie can come out on December 30th, and it's still considered a movie of 2022.
That's true.
So will it catch that 1.5? It's possible. We'll see. Look, We will know the answer to that question by the end of this weekend, by the end of Christmas weekend, because that's when we're going to see, does this movie have legs? Are people rushing like they did for the first Avatar? Are they rushing back to the theater to watch it again? And in going back to the theater to watch it again, are they dragging new people with them to go see it? That's what happened with Titanic. That's what happened with the first Avatar. That's what happened with Endgame, is that people went back again and again and brought new people with them as they did. Will that happen with Avatar 2, The Way of Water? We'll know this weekend.
Yeah,
but I think the
and
answer is yes.
It's got nothing in January to.
We got Puss in Boots.
Well, we do have Puss in
That
Boots
opens this weekend. We'll see. And listen, a lot of people are saying a lot of really good things about Puss in Boots.
It's true.
So we'll see.
Different experience though.
Yeah. All right. What's next?
Dumb Bro Door says the relationship between Jake Sully and his two sons is similar to John Winchester and Sam and Dean.
Yes, it is. That's a great observation.
Older brother is the obedient soldier, and the younger.
There's no part 2.
And part 2 didn't get, but I can see where you're going with that. The younger is I get that. You know what? I love the analogy. Of course, I'm a supernatural guy. I love the Winchesters. I love the analogy. I think that's an astute observation. Well done, Dumbrodor, for pointing that out. Because I think that is a really great example. I think that compares perfectly. All right. Now what we got?
Fierce Isaac sends in a super chat, and Predeminator, like Terminator, Predeminator sends in a super chat. Just to be
supportive. Well, thank you so much, guys. And guys, that'll do it for our Avatar, The Way of Water open spoiler discussion. Thank you so much for coming along for the ride and joining us here today for this. It was late coming, granted, but a lot of you guys still wanted us to talk about. So here we have. I loved the movie. You'll see my top 10 of the year list and Rob's top 10 and Chris's top 10 next week. We filmed them today. Spoiler alert, this movie is on my top 10 of the year list. I absolutely had a phenomenal time. It was a great movie going experience. And apparently a lot of you guys liked it too. So guys, for myself, Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at RM Burnett, find me on Twitter at Burnett RM, or find me on YouTube at The Burnett Work.
And of course, running the show today back there, Taylor Gonzalez has been running things. Good to have you here, Taylor.
Thank you.
And thank you guys and all of you who sent in those super chats. Number one, because you gave us great insight and thoughts about Avatar, The Way of Water. But number two, you supported our channel as you did. And all of us involved with the channel, thank you guys so much for your support. Don't forget, guys, to come on back and join us for the John Campea Show tomorrow. Already a couple of big things have dropped today that we will be talking about on the show tomorrow. We hope that you'll join us for that. So that'll do it for us for now, guys. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.